Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the writer's class. Or in the Ladies Tale. No, not the Ladies Tale podcast. Never the Ladies Tale podcast when it's writing. I forgot which one it was. What's our other one? Woman's Cave. Oh my word. How did I forget our other podcast? I'm getting old, y'all. It's early onset something or another. It might be stupidity. It just might be early onset stupidity. Anyway, I'm Walona and I'm one of the anti-thought ladies and I needed to stop rambling. So I'm stopping myself, I think, maybe, possibly. Nope, train's still going. I'm still rambling. And we wrote books. When I say we, I mean the Missing Jade and I wrote books. And a few other ladies. They're the anti-thought series. So there's anti-thought being grown up was easy and I thought divorce was bad with other life lessons. If only I were me, a memoir in verse. Widow's Web, Widow's Debt, and Foreign Coffee. All of those are available as audiobooks wherever you get your audiobooks. Now, for the books that are printed and only printed, there are 11 more of those, and I'm not going to name them all because that would take too long. I mean, you see how fast my lips are moving. I do not want them to catch on fire or for the rest of my lipstick to come off. That would be rude, because I'm not cute without lipstick. So you can see the rest of that at www.andithoughtLadies.com. And you know, I have to say it like I'm selling cars. So one more time, y'all. www.andithoughtLadies.com. There we go. Hit it that time. But you're not here to hear about me. You're here to hear about our wonderful guest. Wonderful guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi there, I'm Lauren Marino. I'm an editor at Hachette Books in New York. I've been an editor for almost 30 years. I'm also a writer, and I've written 3 books under my own name and collaborated with lots of authors on theirs. And I call myself a bibliomaniac. I've been a book geek since I learned how to read, and I've made a whole career out of it. So I appreciate that you have written 11 books, which is pretty amazing. And it sounds like you're writing books that focus on the female experience, which is exactly what I write about and what I'm interested in too.
So let's start off with, everyone wants to know about you being an editor in chat, obviously, but let's start off with something about you. You write books. So what skills from editing did you take over to writing?
Oh gosh, I think I didn't start writing or publishing my own books until I had been an editor for 25 years, and I had always been a writer. Like, I always wrote. I used to tutor in college. I studied English literature, but I would say the biggest thing I took away was knowing how to structure a book, but also coming up with ideas that I think are timely or important, or things that are kind of the moment that other people haven't done yet. And I think as a writer, sometimes that's the hardest thing, trying to come up with a good idea that hasn't been done, and then structuring it in a way that's accessible. You want the reading experience to be pleasurable. You don't want to get too academic or out there, and you want people to have fun, because reading is educational, but it's also entertainment. And so I like to try to bring out books into the world that are like educating people about something, but entertaining them at the same time.
Well, I understand that I don't understand the educational part because I don't plan on educating anyone in my books. I'm not joking.
Well, I mean, just talking about your own experiences helping people or educating people, right? Because all women, we all go through so many of the same things, and some of these things we don't want to necessarily share, and or we're afraid or embarrassed to talk about them, or like, I've gone through divorce. It's a really hard thing. Your friends who aren't divorced definitely don't want to talk to you about it. Or, so like even if I wrote it about my own experience of going through divorce, other women are going to relate to that if they've dealt with it. And it's going to, educate. I use that word loosely, it's going to help. Hopefully they can relate. Hopefully they couldn't relate to mine because mine was so bad. But, it's sort of like through books, you can cross barriers and create bridges with other people and kind of have the shared human experience, I guess.
I always say when you read a book, you learn somebody else's thoughts and their pathways. Even in fiction, you would part of them is probably going to show up. So you're going to learn about how those characters would view the world and react to the world. And that's going to inform some of your decisions. I have to say, a lot of times I do my research by reading other people's books. Because I mean, they did the research already.
No, that's right. I mean, this, I'll say, like, I published this book back, I mean, it was almost a year ago. It's called Bookish Broads, right? And it's about female writers through history. And the first thing I did was start reading not only the books by the women that I profile in here so that I could know what I was talking about, but also reading biographies about them, looking at books that kind of had a similar format. I just call that research, right? I mean, that's, yeah. And like, that's the whole, like with this book, for example, what I found as I was researching and writing about them is about all of these women really since the 11th century up to the current day, was how much their, like every woman's writing depended on the female writers that came before her, because they were either like knocking down walls for women, or they were setting, they were writing about things that hadn't really been written about before that then made it okay to write about them. Because the female experience has not always been valued historically, and especially not in literature. Even today it's hard. So yeah, I always say if you have any issue in life, if you need to know something, if you're going through something, you got a problem, like the World Library, like like there's this library out there that's all the books ever been published, and you can learn anything you really want.
Exactly. You want to learn about any career, anything you want, just pick up a book and read about it. So I have to ask about now, like what everyone wants to know about. You are an editor at Hachette. Can you please tell us what that job entails? And I think everyone wants to know, are you one of the editors that are accepting books?
Yeah. Well, I've been doing this for almost 30 years now, and I chose early on in my career to focus on nonfiction. So because fiction is really like, that's my love, and I didn't want to like, and it's also very hard to publish. It's a different thing. So I have published only nonfiction, and I published memoirs, narrative nonfiction, current events, women's issues, but I also do a lot of prescriptive books, inspiration, motivation, careers, health and wellness, particularly women's health and wellness. So, so I read book proposals from agents, probably about 20 a week, I'm guessing, and they all come from agents. And then I go through the whole process of finding the ones that I really like and trying to get everyone on my team to back me up and support me. And then I try to get money from my boss, and then she tries to get money from her boss. And I would say I sign up about 10 to 12, I probably bid on like 40 books a year, but I only get 10 or 12 of them, because in publishing, in the big 5 publishers, of which Hachette is one, they're usually sold by the agent at auction. And so when you've got a hot property, all the editors want it. And so they usually auction it off, and I lose a lot. I lose a lot more than I actually get. But then I work with the author, and I make sure that their manuscript, I edit them. I, make sure that the book is as good as it can possibly be, that it's saying everything that the author wants to say. And then I'm working on jacket design and pitching it to the salespeople and working with the marketing and publicity team. So as an editor, you're signing up the projects, but there's sort of like a funnel or a system that, it comes to me through agents that I've built relationships with over a 30-year career. And so they kind of know what I like and the things that I have done well in their eyes. And so they send me those projects in particular. But it's like, you're kind of like the spokesperson and the I don't know, the communicator between the publishing house and the author.
I think you're almost the equivalent of the acquisitions and development in Hollywood.
It's like an
Exactly.
A&R. I compare it to like the A&R guy in the music business, except
Oh
that
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I'm not going to like rock concerts every night or whatever. I'm not going to, like it's a different, it's probably closer to the Hollywood, but with a lot less money involved.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. People are, that's a whole nother discussion. We'll talk about that
It
after
is.
the
It sure
recording
is.
is over. Uh, but how does it feel to be in the business of making dreams come true though?
Oh, I mean, I love it. I love working with authors, and I work with a lot of first-time authors. And in many cases, their first book is something they've been working on. Like if it's, let's say it's a doctor or a psychologist or like somebody who's been researching a very specific subject, or someone who's writing a memoir, it's they've spent years working on this and working towards it. So it's, I look at my job as to help them make the book as good as it can be, but also to just walk them through this whole publishing process because it's a crazy business. It's hard to understand. If you haven't done it before, it can seem confusing and insane. And, it's incredibly cutthroat and competitive. Because so many books are published that as an author, you really need to be out there hustling and building your audience so that when your book comes out, there's an audience there for it. So on the one hand, it's I'm not fulfilling dreams. They're fulfilling their own dream. I'm just there to shepherd that along. And but also to have to communicate bad news sometimes.
Yeah.
And, it can be a heartbreaker. And I've seen it as an author and as an editor. So I know how it feels to be on both sides. And I would say being a writer, like you asked me, how did being an editor make you a better writer? Well, what I found was that writing, like I wrote full time for 5 years before I went back into the business. That taught me to be a much better editor because I know what the writing process is, which not all editors know, but also I realized that communication and being straightforward and communicative and sharing information with authors is so important because I know being on the other side of that, you're anxious and you want you want sales information or you want to know what the marketing plans are, and that's not always being communicated as clearly as authors want. I know how hard it is to be on that side of things. So I try to be more understanding of that and more communicative, I hope.
Mhm. Definitely understand that. So I love the fact that there's an editor out there with the writing that's gone through the whole publishing process because we're sitting here, we're like, this is so upsetting and disappointing and it's so much work. But like I feel like when you have to deliver bad news, it's just you know how to put some of the words together to make it a little easier because it's never great to deliver bad news.
Right, right,
Okay, so I have to ask the question everyone wants to know. And that is, what do you look for in a book proposal that catches your attention?
right. Well, I look for fresh new voices or bold new voices, someone whose voice on the page is really sharp. I like sharp and edgy and sassy. I like a sense of humor. Um, someone who's writing about something new or having a new angle on a subject, writing about it in a different way. Um, and, it's so important now to have a platform. And I'm sure authors are sick and tired of hearing that, but it's just the reality because so many books come out and we're in this digital world and we've been in a pandemic where bookstores weren't even open for 2 years and live events, which is a great way to sell books, had really stopped. Someone who can promote the book and who is working on building their audience, who's got an online presence, who's engaged in their community, in the writing community, because selling the book is sometimes harder than writing the book, and that's just you gotta it's like you've written this book, you put your heart and soul into it, and obviously you want people to find it, and you want readers to find it. And anytime, like, you just go on Amazon or you walk into a Barnes and Noble, you see how many books are there. So it's there's like no magic wand that publishers have. We can do everything in our power with marketing and online marketing and trying to get publicity, but at the end of the day, it's really like it's a partnership between the author and the publisher. So I think that the more that the author knows that they need to go out there and really build their audience, like that's a really important part of the proposal, getting it, at least for the genres that I work in. But I would say even with fiction, there's probably like you need to be able to sell it. Like as a publisher, you want to read something and say, how do I sell this? How do we as a publishing company break through the noise and make a splash with this book? So the more that's in the proposal that helps me figure that out, I think that's the better. And then there are things that, like, I just fall in love with them just because of the subject matter of the voice. So
I can understand that. Some books you read and you're just like, I love this voice. Like, if they wrote anything else that's in this style, I'd read it and I'd be like, oh, it's just about, how to dry out toilet paper. I'd be like, okay, that's fine. It could be about reusing toilet paper. That's okay. It was a funny
right,
book.
right, totally. No, it's true. I mean, a good writer can do that. I mean, I can't pretend to do that. That's like, that's
That's up there. That's
up there. That's high level. I can't do it at all.
Oh my goodness. So, but let's go back to your writing journey. So how long did it take you to write this book? And I feel like we already know the answer to this, but I gotta ask, why did you choose nonfiction? Because you could have definitely wrote a fiction book about women through the years, just sprinkle the facts in there.
I honestly, I feel, and I know, and I'm just going to say it because I feel like as a writer, I am insecure about it. And I think a lot of writers, you are full of self-doubt. You pour your heart and soul out there, you put it on paper, you're exposing yourself. I'm always afraid, oh, my writing's not good enough. Nobody cares. And to me, fiction is like just a whole nother level of skill and talent. And all right. So, and also I'm a single mom. I've got 2 kids to support. And I know with nonfiction, I can write a proposal, sell it, and I can live off of that money while I'm writing the book. Whereas with fiction, a lot of the time you've got to write the whole book in advance. And I just feel like it takes years to write a good novel. And I've been working on one, but who knows? I just don't, I just am not confident that's going to happen for me. But like with the writing about women writers through history, that was just something I was really passionate about. And for me, it was sort of selfish because I got to sit and research all of these female writers and learn about all these writers that I had not, I studied English literature in school, but most of the writers that we read were men. And, it was long ago, but it wasn't that long ago. I know that that's changing a lot in the education system now, but I wanted to selfishly read all of these. It was like sort of giving myself an education in female writers. And I learned so much. I had so much fun doing it. As a fiction writer, the way you become better is by reading other fiction writers. So that's why I chose this subject and chose nonfiction. But it probably took me about a year to write the book, to like write the proposal, get it sold to a publisher, and then I did a lot of research. And my list of the writers I was going to write about kept changing because the deeper down the rabbit hole I went, like I would say, oh, well, Virginia Woolf talks about this writer from the 1500s named Aphra Behn. I've never heard of her, but she was this wildly successful playwright in the 1500s. But then when she died, they kind of crushed her and she was lost to history. So and then Virginia Woolf sort of rediscovered her. It's kind of like Alice Walker, like Zora Neale Hurston, who's so popular now and we all love her, but she was also lost to history. And when she died, she had $50 to her name. She was cleaning hotels. They had burned her books, and it was the guys that did this. So it wasn't until the 1970s when Alice Walker found, like, loved her work, rediscovered her, went and found her unmarked grave in Florida, put her in a book, wrote an essay about her, started teaching her, and over time, then she became very popular. But when she passed away, she kind of, like, her legacy was lost. So I just loved finding these women who had been lost to history and try to figure out why. Like, why were they beaten down? And it was always other women who brought them back, who kind of brought them back. So I know I'm not even answering your question. So it was like there was a lot of research and kind of going off on these tangents, and then I was writing essays about people that never even made it into the book. But I would write like 7 days a week, probably 10 hours a day, but I would take breaks to feed my children and shower and things like that. But I really immersed myself in it. And then you go through the editing process and you go through then they designed it because my book is illustrated, and like the essays were too long for the page count they wanted once they put the illustrations in. So they were like, okay, you have to cut X words from this one and X word. And so I had to go in there and like cut, which is really painful. And so the whole process from beginning to end was about a year. Sitting and doing the writing was probably about 6 months. So I
Okay.
write fast once I get rolling.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So, what about the author journey surprised you? Is there anything in the author journey that surprised you? And because I'm coming from you, you've been around the process of publishing for a few years, so
Yeah, I
I
would say
definitely.
if and I hope that no one like I work with is saying this, or that my publisher's not hearing this, but if I had not been in the business and known what the whole process was like and why things are the way they are, I would have been an angry author. Because, and so I understood why, like, if the publicity's not coming in, and you get mad because you're like, are they not trying? Have they not reached out to people? Like, whenever you're not getting the attention or the media or whatever that you want, it's like, well, they must not be trying hard enough. But I know from being on the other side that just because we try really hard doesn't mean, like, we're not the producers, we're not the editors in the media who make the decision. So we can send the book out to 150 different publicity magazines, TV shows, reviews, whatever. It doesn't mean they're going to get, and we can pitch it and we can follow up, but it doesn't mean that the author is going to get booked. So I had to realize, like, it's not for their lack of trying. So therefore it's up to me to really hustle and do things, like, in order to keep the thing going. So I just started, I did uh like a slideshow, I did a presentation, I just started cold calling like women's writing associations and different women's organizations and clubs, and I started doing talks. And I would say most of the books I sold were through these talks that I did, not from any publicity. So like, as an author, you have to realize, like, you've got to go out there and be like proactive and don't get mad about what they're not doing. You have to just kind of go out there and find your own way. Even if I was speaking to 30 people and I sold 7 books, it's 7 books I hadn't sold otherwise. So it's really hard to sell books. Even if you look at the New York Times bestseller list, it's like Matthew McConaughey, Barack Obama, Dave Grohl, like, it's all Will Smith, it's all big celebrity names. So you got to find your own niche and audience, and you really got to go out there and go after it. And that, I think, as an author, even knowing that, it took me a little while to catch on and go, oh, they're not getting what I was hoping for publicity wise. So now I've got to, like, step it up. I did my reading group guide, I did a website, I did the talks. Like I just started doing things that whatever it took to kind of get my book out there. And I would advise any writer to do that. I mean, I think it's sort of necessary in today's crazy digital attention, and
So
world.
so that brings us, it's a lovely segue, which we do not do here. So segue, that's how
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it. You said bringing attention to the books. Let's bring some attention to the books. Where can we find this book and find out more information about you? But more importantly, where can we buy this book?
Well, Amazon, I think after Christmas, they discount a lot of books. So this book is selling for like $6 on Amazon right now. And it's a hardcover book. It's really fun. It's really pretty. And, you can buy it on bookshop.org, Barnes and Noble, Amazon.com. And I have a website, laurenmarinobooks.com. And there's an excerpt to the book. There's links to the book. There's some interviews I've done. There's some podcasts I've done. So like if you wanted to learn a little bit more about what I do, laurenmarinobooks.com. And then there's buy links right in there.
Thank you so much for coming today. And I'm glad this worked out for our audience. This is our second attempt at trying to get this interview done, and she hung in there and we got it done on the second attempt. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up. And I'm being very professional today, y'all. I think it's because like my allergies are bugging me and I took too many Benadryl, probably like 4. So yeah, I'm probably like falling to sleep. Sorry. But anyway, you can find out everything.
There's a blizzard coming, so that's another thing, right?
Yeah, that's true. There's snow coming here.
Coming here too.
I'm running those through my head too. I'm like, oh, do I have enough groceries? Did I get this? Anyway, not important because none of y'all care about that. What you'd rather like to know is you can find out everything that the ladies are doing and a few things we wish we hadn't put on the internet. Yes, I'm still working on taking those down at www.andithoughladies.com. While you're there, go to the middle of the page and see the charities that we proudly support. We ask that you take a little time, find out about them, and maybe give them a little help as well. We thank you in advance for this. And remember that wisdom is all around you if you're open to finding it and accepting it. So peace and love, you guys, from Winona and the Missing Jade. Oh yeah, thanks for listening.